Three. Okay. Hi, Branislav. Hi, Stefano. Thank you for joining the raw interview. And we invited Richard as well, Richard Barbrook, but maybe he's late, maybe he's not coming. I don't know. If he shows up, he has a link. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you both about, the change and digitalization, how a country can be digitalized, because both of you, including Richard, were working on that. And Stefano, you were working on digitalization in Italy. The latest project you had was implementing API, wide use and accessibility of data through APIs in Italy. And Branislav, you worked on digitalization in Serbia in the early 2000s in the Democratic Party. I mean, you were both members of democratic parties in your own countries. And
not really. I was part of the majority with the Democratic Party.
Ah, okay. Sorry. I apologize. Okay. Anyway, well, Branislav's president was killed. Yours was not. Maybe I don't know. Nobody recently. So
no, he was not.
Yeah, maybe not so funny for Branislav. Sorry. Anyway, so you both, in my mind, including Richard, who didn't show up, you were all doing the same thing. You kind of worked so the entire country is more digitalized. So it's better in terms of digital change after you. And what I noticed is that, for example, I spoke to Branislav, and some of the things he did, they deleted immediately because he was touching very unpleasant areas. And also, Stefano, you told me that some of the work that you've done kind of stopped when you were doing it, So, I mean, it's just, for me, it's just crazy to wrap my head around someone going in a country, like one person, like you, like Branislav, Stefano, and Richard, going in one country and trying to change the entire country. I don't even know. I mean, I'm having trouble changing like 3 people, So you guys were working with tens of millions of people, and taking huge risks, and I cannot imagine. So, I mean, what is the mindset when you just like, okay, today I'm gonna change a country. I'm gonna work on this. How does that happen? How does a person end up doing that? Stefano, you can go first. Yeah.
Okay. For me, it just happened, It was January the 6th of 2013, and I have never been in dealing with politics before in my life. And I received a call then asking me to run in the upcoming elections with the new civic party of the then president Mario Monti. And it is just kind of absolutely astonishing. You're home doing other things, etc., and you receive a call and so on. I would like to talk to Mr. Quintarelli. Yes, it's me. I need to introduce you. We would like you to join, and etc. And I said, well, thank you very much. Well, I don't know what to answer. Do I have to answer right now, or do I have some time to think about it? I said, no, you can think about a couple of hours. And,
Okay.
yeah, because the elections would have been in March, and the call was on January the 6th.
Yeah.
So they need to form the lists for the elections. I mean, it was real hurry. And I said, well, I replied, if you are looking for me, you are looking for my ideas, then I don't want to be just a candidate for my name and then being in a place where you cannot be elected. Then if you're asking me to join and to help, I mean, I can run, but I must have good chances to be elected. So it's not just a poor testimony, the fact, okay. And it was not advertisement. And then I said, and the second thing is, if you are calling me for my ideas, then all these digitization topics, well, I want to own the top. It must be my topic. I mean, I must be the person in charge of this. And they said yes to both. And so I ended up in the parliament. Then what happened was that the Civic Party didn't have the success that it was expected, and but nevertheless it became part of the majority, and the very first day after the election, somebody asked me what would be my first, my most important project, and I said, well, I don't know if it's the most important or, but not the first, but it's for sure the most important, is to start to build a shared federated digital identity system for the country, which did not exist at the time. So I called meetings with the industry unions and association, the confederation of the industries, etc. And I proposed this idea, and suddenly everybody was agreeing on it. And then I had a terrible car accident.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
So on the way to Rome, it was raining and my car did aquaplaning, so I just turned and I went straight into a pole, and I had several, I mean, I was risking really to die. It took me more than 9 months to get back to rather normal, and I stayed for 3.5 months in the hospital. And while I was in the hospital, then a government was formed, and it was run by Enrico Letta, and Enrico Letta called a friend of mine to help on digital issues, and Francesco Caio. Francesco is a former CEO of Cable and Wireless and other companies, and we had a chat and we discussed about the most relevant projects, and I said, well, this of the digital identity for sure, then the national registry, and then the payment system to pay the public administration. And he shared that with the prime minister, and the prime minister said, okay. And there he goes from the hospital. I had phone calls and meetings, etc. And we drafted the very first law. And it was approved immediately, and that's how it started. Then when the Renzi government came in, Mr. Renzi asked me to become the chairman of the Italian Digital Agency, and I still, or the steering committee of the Italian Digital Agency, and I still am, and that's how it happens, really, by chance and with a couple of good ideas, and sometimes if I didn't have made my car accident, if I was not in the hospital, having all that free time to think and to work, it would have taken ages to do what we did. But it helped me staying alive, really, because you cannot imagine, I had my back broken, my leg broken, all my ribs broken, and I was under morphine. Yeah.
So you were making laws under morphine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that's the most important part. Okay. And
Yeah.
Branislav, so you were not so lucky to have a car accident and spend morphine. So you have a different story. Serbia is a little bit more rough, So
yeah,
I think than that. Yeah.
Well, I've been running a company in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and in the winter of 2001, the future Prime Minister Anđelić came there with a group of other opposition leaders. They were preparing for elections, parliamentary elections in 2001. And they knew from the polls that they're going to win the elections, and that he's going to be, there was an 18-party coalition, but he was up front to be the prime minister. And I was in the IT business. I was always on the management side. I owned a company, but I'm not an engineer. Also at the time, there was something called the United Nations ICT Task Force. And the idea behind that was to prepare for transition from classical capitalist society to information society. And this was led by the leaders of the industry. Everybody was there, Gates and all the others. but there were these subcommissions for us little folks, and I was in the commission that dealt with national and regional strategies for information society. So I knew a lot about that. And I got to talk to this guy, Anđelić, that I've never heard of before. And he told me that he's going to be the prime minister. And, like he was kind of interested in that. And he asked me, like, what can he do? And I said, listen, a kid living with his parents with a computer and good internet connection is an export factory. Your investment into that is very, very small. The return can be humongous. You can have I don't know, new Apple, new Oracle, new Microsoft, hundreds of times, and doesn't cost anything. You solve the problem of youth unemployment. You also do need to do some legal changes, because in Serbia at that time and even today, it's very difficult to have a company. It costs a lot of money, so you have to create a special form of company for these kinds of people, and that will be something that will bring you quick wins, and then you can go on from there. And he said, great, thank you, something like that. So then they called the presidential elections for September of 2000, which nobody expected. And I came to Belgrade for those elections. At the time, I was running a website for the Serbian opposition, which was located on my servers abroad because they were afraid that the government is going to cut off their services in Serbia. So I was kind of known among the opposition, but I was really never politically engaged. But I came for those elections in Serbia. Then there were, street riots. The elections were stolen by the sitting president. He relented in the end, and they formed a transition government. By the end of October of 2000, they formed the transition government, and Anđelić called me up. He knew I was in Belgrade, and he said, "Okay, so." He said, I did my part, I won, now you come and run this for me. And I kind of laughed. I said, yeah, sure. I've got a thriving business. I have 20 employees. I got customers there. It's not something, I was building my life for myself there. I really never intended to come back to Serbia, long term, perhaps in retirement. But he was very persuasive. And also I was 40, midlife crisis. This is a huge challenge. I was just a small business owner and suddenly have a chance to run digitalization for the entire country. So I relented and I came back in May 2001. I insisted that he needs to form an agency, a separate agency, that is responsible directly to the prime minister, that this shouldn't be among part of any ministry. And they did that. They created an agency for me, so I came back to be the director of that agency in May 2001. Okay. And so that's how it all started. To be honest, those 18 parties that were in a coalition, I think 15 of them I've never heard of. And for the two of them, which turned out in the end to be very antagonistic to each other, I thought it was the same party. Funny, one was called Democratic Party, one was called Democratic Party of Serbia. Oh. Those were two different parties. One was right-wing, the other one was left-wing. It was just chaos politically. But
the raw democracy.
Yeah. But I started doing my job right away. And the first thing I saw was that the entire government is running on illegal software. All the licenses, everything was on illegal Microsoft Windows. And also the universities and everybody was doing this, this illegal stuff. So I started, I called up Microsoft and I said, we want basically, there was a guy in Slovenia who helped a lot because that's where Microsoft seat for Central and Eastern Europe was at the time. And we arranged the meetings and I said, I want strategic partnership agreement for Serbia. We want to legalize all the software in the country. But most of all, what we wanted was a Microsoft Development Center in Serbia, because we had a lot of Serbs working for Microsoft in development in the US and Canada, and they were very good at it. I mean, they had good positions. So I said, hey, you can have these people here, huge number of them at 1/10 of a price if you open a center here. So they were pretty hard negotiations. By the end of August, we finished them, and the Prime Minister and I went to Redmond for final talks with Ballmer and Gates, and we got our agreement, and it was all over the news. So when I came back, suddenly all the other companies started calling, like Cisco and Hewlett Packard, and said, "Oh, we want a deal too." So it started really well. I mean, it was really. I was on a roll in 2001.
Okay, well, but so as I understood, and we have to keep the answer shorter. Sorry to say that. I wanted to let you speak.
I'll be sure.
The whole thing, Stefano knew, but because we have 20 more minutes. So you were both invited by someone else. So you were both doing something else. You were business people, and you were invited by politicians. And Stefan, I didn't understand. The president invited you or his people?
Yeah, the prime minister.
Yeah, the prime minister. Sorry, I'm horrible with this. The kings invited both of you, called you, met you personally, and said, "I want you to do this." And then you jumped from business into politics, and then you were like, "Okay, let me try to work with the country." So just quickly, was that in retrospective? Was that a good decision, Stefano, for you?
Well, this is a very tough question, really.
Yeah.
If I was very puzzled when I was asked to go to lend a hand, and if I'd go back to that January the 6th, 2013, I would still be very puzzled. So, of course, I know that I made a contribution to the country. And that is quite rather recognized, I would say. On the other hand, when I entered the parliament, everybody knew me as a tech entrepreneur, and all my colleagues saw me as a tech entrepreneur entering the parliament, one with a successful track record, a good tech entrepreneur, helping politics. After I finished my term, everybody saw me as a good politician trying to go back to business. Going back to business has been hard. And it has been hard. So it took me a long time to get back to being appreciated like a business person. Okay.
I think Trump has the same problem now, no?
Yeah, but different motivations, and maybe he made so many big favors that he is going to have an easier path. No, but really, I mean, once people perceive you as a politician, and there is some disregard toward politics in Italy, and they see you as a politician and say, "Oh, you're a politician." And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm a computer scientist and entrepreneur. It just happened that I was in the parliament for 5 years." And that's it. No, when somebody asked me to run again in this current legislature, and I said no, because I thought that really 5 years fully committed to that is enough for a lifetime, and so it's a very tough question. I don't know if I'd go back to that moment. I don't know if I would say yes, because going back to normal, it's been hard.
You, Branislav, are you happy? You think you made a good decision?
Well, no, I think I made a horrible decision. Looking back at it, it
But
looked
you made
very,
good-
very good decision at the time.
You
Yeah.
made good things for the country. That is it's really putting on a balance. I know that I made good things for a country, but I made bad things for me.
Yeah, but Stefano, I mean, Stefano, just, I'm sorry to interrupt, Stefano, because you don't know, Serbia is a small country, not very, you know, but Branislav is really like a hero, you know, what he did. I mean, he's like a winemaker now, no, you know, incognito, but he's really, in those years, because I remember living in those years, he's really like a big, you know, like a well-known person that did that. I met him only recently personally, and I was very surprised that he was the same guy, you know, that, you know. Anyway, so Branislav, so you think it's a horrible decision, yeah?
Well, now looking back at it, I didn't realize that the only person in the entire country who wanted to move it towards the 21st century and digitalization was the prime minister who hired me. Everybody else was very, very strongly against it. So everything I did was extremely, extremely difficult. I did have some very few lasting accomplishments, mostly when, unfortunately, my boss, the prime minister, was killed. He was assassinated in 2003. And the opposition party, which is a right-wing party that wants to bring Serbia back to the 15th century religious monarchy or something like that.
That was a good century.
Yeah, they weren't interested in digitalization or anything at all. And for the next 16, 17 years, that everything I've done has been taken apart and went back to where it was before I was there. Except for a few things. I'm very proud that I have managed to make a very strong foundation for the Serbian national domain name. When I came there, basically the old domain name .yu has expired, and we got a new .rs, and nobody really understood what is multi-stakeholder management of internet domains. The government thought that they own .rs, and it was very difficult to explain that no, ICANN owns it, and they give you a license to manage it, and they will give you a license only if the entire society is included in it. So that was very, very difficult, and I've managed to persuade everyone to form a foundation and to give the domain name to that foundation for management, a nonprofit foundation, and it is still working today. So that's one of the things that I've accomplished that I'm proud of, that are working still today. Also, the government is still working on illegal software today. And the Microsoft Development Center has become one of the biggest ones outside the US. So we have 300 developers here now, and they're contributing significantly to the Microsoft production. And also the legalization of software and the development of internet has really spawned this freelance movement where people, my original idea really, that people will work from home for anybody in the world and bring money, you know, becoming an export engine. That has only taken off in the last 3 or 4 years, but it is built upon the foundation that I've established. Everything else has been completely demolished. I mean, the e-government has started to introduce e-services last year based on my plans of 20 years ago. So it's been really dark ages. For myself, after Prime Minister was assassinated, of course, I lost my job, and I wanted to go back to the States, but I was persuaded by some friends to stay here. We formed a consulting company. It was a finance consulting company. I'm actually a finance expert, but I've always worked in the IT. So that was successful. I mean, I've made as much money in Serbia as I would have made in the US. So that the financial side was not that bad. But living in a country where you see that everything you've done for the common good is being degraded and dismantled slowly, and that the country is sinking back to the dictatorship, basically, or right-wing dictatorship that existed before 2000, it's very hard. It's very hard to do that. So, several years back, I decided I'm going to withdraw myself from public life. I have a nice little winery, and I'm making wine, organic wine, and successfully selling it. And I'm not in the public eye anymore, and I don't want to go back. And I'm not doing anything IT anymore.
Okay. Well, Branislav, as we spoke in the last interview, you were also in jail.
Yes.
Yeah, and you were also in kind of house arrest, city arrest for a decade. So, which is.
Yeah, the government that succeeded Mr. Đinđić was very intent on destroying everybody who worked for him. And I was accused of misusing official powers. I was actually accused of helping a private company make 200 million euros, but without me taking any money at all. No. So I did it out of goodness of my heart. Yeah. Helping them make zillions, which was all completely ridiculous. It was a funny thing, really. It came. We didn't have 1,900 megahertz frequency on our mobile phones when I was there. The frequency has been auctioned off several years before, and the Serbian government company bought all the frequencies, which they didn't need, all the spectrum they didn't need. And the private competitor wanted to purchase from them some of those frequencies. And I basically wouldn't, and they wanted to actually get them for free, and I wouldn't let them. And so that's, I don't want to bother you with that. But yeah, I was, for 3 months, I was in jail, investigative jail, and then they released me. And for 10 years, I was under form of house arrest. I couldn't leave Serbia. That's over now. That all the charges have been dropped. I'm now suing for damages. So
yeah. Good luck.
Very, very bad experience. But I don't. That's not the part that is really bothering me at all. I mean, that's part of life in a country like this. What is bothering me is that we had this 15, 16 years of doing absolutely nothing in the digitalization and information society development, that we could have been, far, far ahead of many other countries today if we continued on the course that Prime Minister Đinđić outlined and that I was helping implement.
Yeah, I was more lucky on this side, I must say, because after I left, the new government came in, and somebody in the government tried to dismantle some of the things that I started, and I think that's common, because I mean, the one who comes being alternative to the former one, they just want to say, oh, all the previous stuff is crap, and we must start anew. But I was able somehow, with a number of friends, and when I was in Rome, I made a lot of networking. I built a lot of networks among people that still exist, and creating opportunities for lawmakers interested in digital things to meet, creating opportunities for staff of the various central administration, ministries, etc., to meet and discuss things. These networks still exist. People knowing each other and trusting each other. So when the new government came in and they really wanted to subvert things that I made, something that it was very clear to me that would have led to dismantling them. A number of these people that knew, understood, etc., opposed these changes in the parliament, in the government, in the ministries, etc. And so in the end, they were not able to change it. And as a matter of fact, then the pandemic came, and they discovered that, oh, that infrastructure is really useful, and and now they are pushing it. They are pushing services, that are based on the infrastructures that I built. So effectively, these now have changed the majorities. It was from Democratic Party, then to the Northern League, and now has changed parties in charge in government. Since when I started that with Prime Minister Letta, then was Renzi, then Gentiloni, and then the first government Conte, and then the second government Conte. So five prime ministers, and 3 different types of majorities, and they still exist. And so now I'm confident go on. But the push to dismantle them was to reform them was really hard. But I was lucky enough, so hopefully things will go on and not being dismantled.
Yeah, we
I'm sorry, Branislav. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Just because Stefano said we have very few minutes left. Is that correct?
At
8 minutes. Okay. So just a quick question, Stefano, and then I have a final question. Did you have any resistance, anything similar to what Branislav had? Like legal issues or personal resistance towards you? And then I have the last question for both of you.
Yes, I had personal resistances, of course. I proposed a bill that was approved this is just an example, by the lower house and then by the Senate in all the committees, etc. And when it was the final vote was scheduled, the final vote was postponed until the legislature ended, and it never happened. But this is just an example. Another, a way to block things is that you approve them, but first you approve them without any funding. So you have approved, but you cannot spend a penny on them. And but somehow we managed, thanks to other interested parties, etc., to build things with, although having no funding, but involving the private sector. And the second thing is that they say they put in the law that a detailed regulation will be formed by some minister in the future, and that never happens. And so these were the forms of it was not really fierce opposition, but it was some kind of sluggishness. And in Italy we say un muro di gomma. I don't know how to say.
The wall of the rubber wall.
Yeah, rubber wall, so that you push and they push back.
Pushes back.
So yes, there was some opposition, and still. And another thing is that you have the law, but there are no sanctions if you don't follow the law. And this is a third option. So no funding, further regulation in the future, and then no sanction if you don't follow the law. So these are there are plenty of those in the laws that we made.
Okay. So in my mind, it seems crazy because digitalization is like a human right. I mean, you were not like doing some extraordinary things. It's kind of like a natural thing to do. And, it's crazy that there was resistance. It seems like a basic thing to do. But I guess, people don't see it. So because we are short on time, and actually it's good that Richard didn't show up because he would talk for 2 hours, So, I actually have 2 questions. If can we organize another one? I don't know. I know I'm bothering you, but if Richard, I would like still the 3 of you talk at some point, maybe in a month, maybe in a week, interested in that. Like it's just an hour. Yeah. Okay. So my final question, what actually interests me. So I believe I'm very interested in increasing participation of citizens, meaning directly, because our project is openinnovation.me. And I really believe in through that we increase participation of customers, but I'm also interested in how citizens can participate more, not in referendums and stuff to say yes or no and choose options, but actually ask questions, And I see, there is all this social media and stuff, like on Facebook, you can participate in a lot of things, but in politics, meaning people have a mobile phone and they can click things and say yes or no, which was very difficult before. Meaning technology can enable it, but politically it's not happening. Politics seems to be the least innovative activity in human society. That's how it seems. So, how do you see the change? Stefano first, but I mean, quickly because we have a few minutes left. How do you see the change? How can we get to the point where every citizen can easily get their rights directly without representation?
I don't want to talk about other countries. I can say
Italy,
well, in Italy. So first of all, the parties in Italy are managed by a limited group of people that have pyramidal structures. So and so they negotiate between them the exchange of votes in support of this and the other, and in return of the vote of your group, I will give you this, etc. And then they do a strong arm because they want to have such a position, etc. And it's all moving their lots of votes inside the parties. This translates also to the more general politics in the parliament. So I believe that we have a governance issue inside the political parties that prevents the fact that the contribution from the base are really taken into account. I can imagine that there are a number of companies that you talk to that they are interested in open innovation because they want to put that on their website, but they don't really have a process in order to do that. Because they simply don't care. And the same goes for political parties, because it's all negotiation between the leaders of the various factions inside of the political parties. They don't really care about the contribution.
Can I give you an example? Just a quick example that happened the other day. I was following Yanis Varoufakis. I don't really follow him much, but okay, let's see what he's doing. And DM25, they send this thing like, let's see what people think, and then what they said, instead of having a website digital form where you can immediately do everything, they said, let's organize a gathering in Corona, and then they give you a PDF, like it's mid-20th century, basically. I was thinking, why didn't you just use Google Forms? I'm asking you.
Listen, I will give you another example. I was just, we formed former members of the parliament in my period, and other people from the civil society around us, we founded an association that is called Copernicani, and we work on these issues. So we were called by one of these political parties, right, that are now in the political arena, and they were writing. They wanted to be helped to engage their bases. And I asked, okay, so the very first question is, after you get ideas from the bases, what is the process to take those ideas into account? I mean, suppose that we obtain an idea. Who is going to evaluate it? How is it incorporated into your policies? And they said, oh, we didn't think about that. We just wanted to have a questionnaire for the people and give the people the possibility to write opinions. Well, okay, but then what happens with these opinions? Well, we don't know. So it's really, they are not really interested because they think, erroneously, in my view, that would not strengthen them, but that would put them in crisis. They think they have ownership of the content instead of the ownership of the control of the process. They should be the masters of the process, not the masters of the content.
Well, how can we break that?
Sorry?
What's your advice? You've been in politics for decades, for more than a decade. How can we break that?
No,
How can that? Because this representation is going on for hundreds of years now. It's like always the same story, you know.
Yeah, it's going to be the same story because incumbents don't want to change because their positions will be challenged, and that's why I think that we need to start with young politicians and young future leaders to show them that there are other possibilities, and that's why we started this International Forum on Digital and Democracy, which is a forum that took place. It should have been in Venice, but it took place online in December, and it's going to be in 2022 is going to be the next edition. And it's an international forum where we meet, where we try to bring together politicians and young people and academia, just to show how things can really be done in a different way. You know, the voting systems, the decision systems that parties use today, at least in Italy, date back to the 18th century. Okay, we have done in game theory, in decision theory, etc. We have done ages of more sophisticated things, but still they don't employ them. They go back to the 18th century because that's
it's the least innovative activity that I can see. You know, it's like there is everything else changes. The thing that's, you know, gets worse is either food or democracy. It's getting stupider and stupider.
I am curious about Branislav now.
Yeah, sorry, Branislav. Just sorry, one more thing. Sorry, Branislav. So Cinque Stelle tried to do direct democracy with Gian Roberto.
I mean, I was friends with Gian Roberto. I'm not talking about direct democracy. Direct democracy has an implication. I mean, things are complicated. Even if you are an expert in one field, you don't know everything about that field. You can have an idea and then you discover that you have international treaties that prevent that idea. Okay, a perfectly sensible idea, but you cannot do it. Okay, so it's very complicated. I believe in representative democracy because things are really complicated. The idea that you can talk go to the baker and ask him to cast his vote and decide about something of what the international policy should be, or what shall we do about certain things. I mean, it's very complicated. You have to study a lot and work a lot, and it's really it's really a kind of activity that needs representation. But you need to have opinion and you need to engage citizens. But you need to know what the people think in order to accommodate the policies. But you cannot ask the people to write the policies. This is to directly write the policies. This is my opinion.
Cool, thank you. I didn't know you were a friend with Gian Roberto. That's cool. Branislav, so how can countries move more towards participation? Well, what I actually think is direct democracy, but not in maximum form, as Stefano is saying. Just like what's the next level of democracy, which has to be enabled by digitalization, I imagine. I mean, that's why we're talking to digitalization experts here.
Well, you see, the people of Serbia have realized that democracy is an aberration in the human history. It is something that has existed for a very short period of time, and that really who should rule are the leaders. And this is what the public opinion in Serbia is. We have leaders. Leaders lead us. We do what leaders say. Once we get fed up, we kill the leaders or we remove them from power and we choose another leader. We have cult of personality here, always. Serbia has never been a democratic country. We simply don't understand democracy, and we don't think it's a good thing. So here, the task is tremendously more difficult than in the countries that have practiced democracy for hundreds of years. People, you know, there is an anecdote from early 1990s where first opposition parties appeared in Serbia. So one of these opposition party leaders was campaigning for the election in Serbia in some villages. And he had a rally and he described his program. And everybody there said, yo, it's fantastic what you want to do. I mean, we completely agree with you. You know, you're a great guy, you're smart, you know, you will be great, you know, leader. And then he said, well, yes, so you're going to vote for me. And he said, yeah. As soon as you get into the power, we'll be voting for you. So democracy here is very abstract word. I mean, we're currently having a single party parliament because opposition parties didn't want to participate in the elections, and the government doesn't see anything wrong with that. They have a total majority in the parliament. They're going to change the constitution. You have similar situation in Hungary. So, for us, I don't see much hope in digitalization helping shape the democracy in Serbia. I think in Serbia, it has to start with education. It has to start early on by any means. They don't have to be digital means. Because today, even if you provided every citizen of Serbia the opportunity to express their opinion, and if you had some AI which will parse through those opinions and collect them and make some common denominators and suggest that to politicians, nothing would happen.
Okay.
And also the citizens are not capable of as Stefano said, you need to do a lot of studies and learning and understanding before you can express a reasonable opinion about any problem. And I can tell you that back in 68, 70, when I was a high school student, 96% of the population of Yugoslavia was literate. And today only 55% of the population of Serbia is literate. So I have no faith that in my lifetime, Serbia will see democracy with or without digitalization, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, just one short question and then we can finish. But don't you think a country that is so unstable and constantly changing things is maybe a good candidate to try something new? Because, for example, in America, where they're so much stuck in a single system with so much tradition, Serbia has like these personal traditions, but basically has no political tradition as well.
Nothing happens here unless the big boss wants it to happen. And that's basically it.
Yeah.
If you have, I remember there was a saying attributed to Winston Churchill who said, benevolent dictatorship is better than any democracy. And organizational wise, he was right. The problem is that there are no benevolent dictatorships. And dictators always think about themselves and the people around them. And as Stefano said, the top of political parties who make deals among themselves. And it is more difficult to deny democracy in the Western countries, but here, where there is no tradition, in Eastern Europe, where there is no tradition, in Eastern societies, in Muslim societies, democracy is very, very far away. And I'm very pessimistic about it.
Okay.
Sorry to end on this note, but
no, sorry. Yeah, let's finish on the we're all gonna die one day as well.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I had a chance to go to participate in some workshops at the OSCE for the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, which is an organization that encompasses I don't remember 40 states or something.
Yeah.
And not only European, there is also Azerbaijan and Russia and all the countries that are, or more than 40, that are interested in for the security of Europe. And when I gave my talk, I had to undergo a course before speaking, and they said, don't talk about authoritarian states, say guided democracies.
I'm really sorry Richard is not here because he has a flag of Yugoslavia in his living room and he's a big fan of China. So he missed his work. That's why I wanted all three of you to talk. So I think it would be very interesting to see how he would react to these things.
I like this guided democracy.
Yeah.
Branislav, it was a pleasure meeting you.
Cool.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'll publish it and then I'll let you know if we can.
Someday in my life, I will go to Serbia and I have the chance of visiting your winery.
Please come. I have excellent wines. They won some international awards, so it's not just an idle hobby. I'm good at it, and I'll be proud to show you my creations. Yes.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ciao.
Ciao.
Bye.
Buonasera.